I went to business school in one of the top universities in America, but even so, as an entrepreneur, there are so many different lessons that I had to painfully learn through putting in my time and energy into to gain that experience. So in this video, I'm gonna share with you some of the most impactful things I've learned as an entrepreneur over the years. And this is from my personal experience being a content creator here on YouTube, as well as a consultant helping brands do 7 figures in revenue. And real quick, I wanna give a huge shout out to Atlassian for making this video possible. And if you're not already familiar with Atlassian, they're a software company that focuses on creating a suite of tools which help teams collaborate and unleash their full potential. And personally for me, I've been using Atlassian products for years, Trello actually being one of my favorites. I personally use Trello to help organize my online classes, my video projects, helping me manage my team, as well as using it as a simple CRM. So if you're interested in using Trello yourself and you want to unleash the power of your team, make sure to click the link in the description to learn more. So thanks Atlassian for sponsoring this video, and let's go ahead and dive right in. So the first tip that I have for you when it comes to business lessons that you do not learn in school is you want to learn how to hire as soon as possible. Now this is extremely important for especially for my entrepreneurs out there, my coaches, my consultants, and even if you are working at a sales company and you want to speed up the process, or maybe you want to hire people under you, this is going to be incredibly important, even if it's just hiring an assistant. If you want to do big things, you can't do it alone, right? A lot of people think that being a lone wolf is like the best thing ever, but it's not. Collaboration is the key to building big businesses. So here's my advice on hiring, right? The first thing you want to think about, and obviously if you can afford it, you're getting some cash flow, is that you want to hire as soon as possible. And I believe the first hire that most people should make is most likely a personal assistant or executive assistant, because the reality is your time is very valuable, right? You got to be focusing on creating product, generating sales for your business, or generating sales for your company. But there are so many things in our daily life that just bog us down, right? That just kind of waste our time, whether it's picking up an Amazon package or driving somewhere to drop something off. If you think about it, these are technically low skill tasks, right? You're going to want to offload this to someone else who would love to do that job, right? While you focus on the things that actually move the needle for your business, which is usually generating more sales. Because if you are spending, let's say 20% of your time, 30% of your time picking up your laundry and just these random things, that 30% can be applied to actually generating more sales. And could you generate 30% more revenue if you had 30% more time? That's definitely a possibility. So with that new revenue generated, you can hire someone like an assistant or someone to help you out, because that's going to allow you to scale so much more further. And after you get beyond just a personal assistant, you can hire other things like operations, marketing, content creation, someone helping you with a video and stuff like that, right? Which we have over here for this YouTube channel. So whatever it is, you want to think of it like you want to replace yourself, right? Because in the beginning, it's very difficult to hire really good talent because you're just starting out. So as an entrepreneur, your job is to basically learn how to do something once, set up a system, hire someone to be put into that spot, and then find another challenge for you to do. And then you repeat the process over and over and over until you have a bunch of people who have essentially replaced you. And when you get to a point where your business doesn't need you, that's the ultimate freedom in a sense, right? Now I'm going to show you how I personally use Trello when it comes to hiring people, right? And I'm using Trello basically as a simple CRM for the recruiting process. So how I do it is that we have potential candidates over here. We have interviews scheduled, pending decision, hired, and disqualified. So how it works is that when people come in and they, apply to work with me, or maybe I put out a job board out there and they apply as well, we're going to put their names over here. We're going to attach their resumes, right? There's an attachment button there. So we just have the name, the resume, and then we kind of just show like which label they should be under, whether it's a developer, business development, design, moderator, marketing, so on and so forth. So for me, my team would basically handle this entire process. My job is just to look at who is on the board, where are they at in the recruiting process, and for me to see where we're stuck or what we need more help on. So let's say if Sally is going for a design, if she applied as a designer, then my team will do the interview scheduled. Usually they will do the first screening, and then after the first screen, then we'll do the second interview. After we do that interview, we will move into pending decision, whether or not we want to do it or not. And sometimes we may want to recruit them, but they have to decide whether they want to work with us or not, right? And then finally from there, they're hired. And then if they are not a good fit, we just put them in the disqualified section of this board. So it's very simple. You can basically use Trello for anything, whether it's a sales CRM, could be literally the same thing. You just change out the titles of each column. And the beauty of using this versus resources just using like a note or Excel sheet or something like that. First of all, it's very aesthetic, so it looks pretty cool when you're using this. Second, you can drag and drop the different cards. So as people move, you can move them over here. I mean, it's just simple to use and it's very visual. Typically, my team will be doing all of this anyways, right? So I just need to come in here, look at it for like 10 seconds to see what's going on. And that's really good for me as a manager. You know, this is something I highly recommend to use Trello, whether it's for recruiting or sales or project management. There's so many different use cases for this. So definitely want to check that out. So the next tip that I have for you is that you're going to want to have a clear vision for what you want in life, right? Whether it's building a company or whether it's to work at a company as an employee and develop your career that way. Whatever it is, you have to have a clear vision of what you want, right? So for me, when I graduated from school, the first thing I did was actually join Oracle, right? Which is one of the largest technology companies in the world, do B2B sales. Now, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was always my vision. However, I knew that in order to be a successful entrepreneur, I first wanted to learn the skill set of selling. I still wanted some cash flow. I need some money in the bank after graduating. So that's the first thing I did, right? So even though my vision was always to be an entrepreneur, to start a business, I knew that the steps I needed to take personally to get there was not just getting into the business right away, but to actually be a sales rep at a technology company to understand how the game goes so that when I could do it on my own, I would be at an advantage rather than just starting from zero. And then even as an entrepreneur, right? There's this whole thing, especially if you're getting started, you're not making too much money. There's this feeling of shiny object syndrome. So what does that mean? You see a lot of people, they jump from business to business. You know, one day they're doing Amazon, next they're doing drop shipping, next they're doing NFTs. It just goes on and on and on and on. And then they just kind of go in a circle and they just don't really get that far because they never go deep into one niche. So having a vision of what you want your life to look like, what kind of business you want to do, how you want to make your money, and what are the steps that you need to take to fulfill that goal, it's incredibly important. Because the reality is, if you don't have a vision of what you actually want in life, the world will decide for you. And if the world decides for you, typically you're going to be put into a box. You're going to be put into a place where it's like, you're just going to be, you're in a machine. Even if you play a role of an employee, that's totally okay too, but you know what you want. And sometimes for some people, they want like a certain job that pays a certain amount to work with certain smart people, and they enjoy their life in that capacity. And that's great, right? But then they had to plan their life in that way. If you're kind of living through life and you're just guessing and you're letting the wind take you wherever, you can get lucky and it could work out. But on the flip side, it could totally not work out and you just might be trapped, unhappy, depressed, and you don't know what to do, right? So whether you're an employee or whether you're an entrepreneur, you have to have a clear vision of what you want. And of course, as you learn and gain more experience, that's always going to change. What you want will change and evolve, especially when you accomplish your goals. But having that vision and focusing on it is incredibly important. The next tip I have for you is that you got to be resourceful and do the best with what you have. So here's the challenge I see most people have, right? So let's say you're a sales rep or something like that. They'll be like, oh, you know, my company's not good. I don't have any leads. I don't have this and that. Or maybe you're an entrepreneur and you'll say, oh, I don't have any investments. I can't do this. I can't do that. The reality is we all dealt with different cards in our life, right? Some people are just born with better looks. Some people are born into wealth. Some people are born with nothing. It just is what it is. You can't have a negative, cynical mindset where, oh, this person's successful because their family's already rich. Well, it doesn't matter, right? You got the cards that you're dealt with and you just have to accept it and use the resources that you have. Because a lot of times when you become more resourceful and you become more optimistic about what you have, then you start to feel like, oh, wow, you have a lot of potential, right? As an entrepreneur, you got to work with limited resources. A lot of you guys out there, you might be working with no resources. And the only resource you have is actually your time, especially if you're a sales rep, right? If you're graduating from college or maybe you just switching jobs into tech sales or something like that, you probably don't really have much besides your personal savings. So the only thing you have there is your time. And if your time is your resource, then you want to protect it and you want to use it wisely. And then also you want to think about your network as well, right? Like, can you use the resources in your network to get a certain job? Can this person help you over here? Can you get some information over here? Can somebody mentor you? And a lot of times it doesn't have to be something so materialistic like money or assets. Sometimes it's going to be connections. Sometimes it's that you are lucky and located in a very advantageous geographical area. For example, if you were born in America, living in a city like Los Angeles or San Francisco, there's definitely an advantage of that compared to, let's say, growing up in Vietnam or something, right? And then for me, when I was first starting out, right, especially when I was making online courses, the only resources I really had was my time. So I would do everything myself. So I would write the videos, film the videos, upload the videos, do the marketing, do the SEO, right? And then as I gained more cash flow, I used that cash flow to hire different people. Then I hired a personal assistant to help me with all the uploading, downloading, copying and pasting and stuff. Then I hired a marketer to help me with the SEO and the thumbnails and things. I hired an editor, help me with the editing. And then basically I just kept kept replacing myself over time and use the resources I have, which is just my cash flow, to hire other people and continue that train over there. And nowadays, now that I have some cash flow going, I got some employees going as well, the next resources that I'm tapping into is my network, right? And in the beginning, especially in the whole technology space and Web3 space, which I spent a lot of time in, I didn't have a network, right? And so I had to build it from scratch, start doing Twitter threads, sharing my opinion and things like that. And eventually over time, I got to meet more people. And now I can actually leverage those relationships and turn them and monetize it, right? And so if you're starting from nothing, it's fine. I started from nothing too, but you have to just keep pushing and be really resourceful with what you have and not be too greedy and spend all your money that you make, but actually use it to hire people and live below your means. Now, next tip I have for you, and this is probably one of my favorite ones, is be accountable. I feel like in the modern day world, a lot of times we typically blame other people for our problems, right? We'll blame this company, we'll blame the government, we'll blame the market because it's in the bear and everything's going down. If you really believe that there's always someone to blame, then that's your reality. But the other reality that also exists is that you can also take accountability for all the problems that you have. So for me, what I try to do, and it's a constant practice of getting better and better at this, is that whenever I have a problem, I typically try to say, okay, must be my fault. For example, if I was walking down the street and I got hit by a car, well, it's my fault, I didn't look, right? And people might be like, well, that's pretty extreme. What if you were right for walking across the street and that guy was just going fast? Yeah, that's true. But the reality is, if you are the person in control and you just take responsibility over your life, no matter what the situation is, then you have the opportunity to improve, right? So I'm gonna give you an example of how I would use this whole concept of taking responsibility, but applying it into a B2B sales context, because I know a lot of you guys are generating leads, trying to close deals, trying to make money and things like that, right? So for my personal CRM, right, this is like my consulting advisory CRM. Basically, we have people who we're gonna reach out to, people we already reached out to, meeting schedule, negotiating, and deals closed, right? Essentially, when I'm going through my CRM in this process, I'm really thinking about okay, if I'm not making the money I want, if I'm not closing the deals I want, what's the issue? And so I can look at this real quick and be like, oh, maybe I'm not reaching out to enough people, right? Maybe if I double my leads, maybe I can double my revenue. Or if I know I'm reaching out to a lot of people, but a lot of people just aren't closing after my meetings, I can see clearly oh, I'm not getting enough people into negotiation phase. They never want to go there. So that means something in my meeting or my presentation must be off. So I have to take responsibility and change it so that they actually want to work with me, right? You have to have some way to keep track of what's working and what's not. And once you have some way to keep track of that, you have to really be honest with yourself and say, hey, why aren't I hitting the goals that I want? And typically it's always your fault, because if it's your fault, then it's in your control to actually make a difference. If you're blaming the market, if you're blaming the economy, if you're blaming politics, then nobody's gonna come and save you. You're gonna have to save yourself. I think once you accept that and you're willing to actually work hard for your goals, then life starts to get more fun, because then you realize that you can bend reality and do whatever you want. And it really just comes down to a simple belief that everything is your fault, and it is. And so with that said, those are gonna be my top lessons when it comes to business lessons that you do not learn in school. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.